My name is Paul Hellyer. I'm a former National Defence Minister for Canada. And the subject of this short video is we are not alone in the cosmos. For decades, some scientists and even some disinformation organizations like NASA have been telling us that it is mathematically impossible that Earthlings are the only sentient beings in a cosmos comprising millions of star systems. What they haven't told us is that some of those that we call aliens have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. The United States government is well aware of the crashes that occurred in the 1940s, including the two that were reported from Roswell, New Mexico, when they began to take the subject very seriously and decided to give it a security clearance higher than the H-bomb. Immediately, they began to try to back-engineer the technology. And over those 70 years, with the expenditure of trillions of dollars, they have managed to build a space-faring fleet, all the while denying the existence of UFOs. Skeptics insist that the visitors couldn't come to Earth because at the speed of light, it would take them too long to get here. One of the first things that we must learn is that gravity travels faster than light. So gravity and anti-gravity machines can do the same. And then there is the question of wormholes, which are aids to celestial navigation. In the mid-1960s, an armada of 50 flying saucers flew south across Europe. The Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, was just about to press the panic button when they turned around and flew north over the North Pole. But as a result of this incident, he ordered that a study be made. It took 3 years to complete and said categorically that species, 4 of them at least, had been visiting Earth for thousands of years. All of the visitors are much more advanced technologically than we are, and some of them have been sharing their knowledge with us, which is the reason we've been advancing so quickly these last 50 years. They're also more advanced spiritually and serve our Creator God.
People all over this planet for at least 6,000 years have been influenced by extraterrestrials, the Dracos and the Reptilians. They have taken the information that is in essentially every school on the planet, and they've modified the information. All history documentation in this country and on every country on the planet have been given lies about astronomy, lies about mathematics, lies about technical capabilities, lies about the universe. You name it, okay? Everything have been lies. Every PhD on this planet, whether they're scientific, whether they're medical, makes no difference. Every book that they read the 6 years they were in the university are lies. They're not telling the truth. They were not taught the truth.
Number 10. Origins. Supposedly they came to Earth thousands of years ago and shared the Earth with people. Then they either decided or were forced to go undercover and hid themselves from our reality. They also started to interbreed with humans by altering our DNA, similar to the way that people alter computer code. The altering of our DNA had a twofold effect. They altered our DNA so we don't use our brain to its full capacity, putting a limit on our consciousness and making us easier to control. As evidence, some people point to the fact that we have reptile genes within our brain. In fact, the reptilian brain is the oldest of the three parts that control our brain. The second is that people with reptile DNA in them can be possessed by reptilians who live outside our realm of awareness in the lower fourth dimension. These human-reptile hybrids, considered demigods, were able to gain power in the ancient civilizations of Sumer, Babylon, and Mesopotamia. As humankind started to colonize the rest of the planet, the reptiles spread across the earth and became the royal families throughout the world. By having power in every single country, the reptilians have created a global prison that people don't even realize they're in. The prison was created by drawing country lines, which leads to endless wars and conflicts. Another way they control humans is by distracting us with media, entertainment, and even politics. They've also made the population stupid and lazy by poisoning their food, the air, and even the water. The lizard people altered our brains to limit their ability. They installed most, if not all, world leaders throughout history. Those leaders in turn contributed to all major historical events. Finally, for thousands of years, they've been poisoning humans. And all of this was done to ensure that they control humankind. Number 9. The Reptilian Hierarchy. According to David Icke, there is a hierarchy when it comes to reptilians. Notably, there are two classes of reptilian, full-bloods and crossbreeds. Full-bloods are aware that they are reptilians and can change forms between their human exterior and their true reptilian skin. Also, the full reptiles are not wearing an actual physical disguise. Instead, their human shell is created through vibrations that alter the human mind, so your brain just thinks it sees a human. Different races. At the top of the pecking order are the Dracos, which are winged albino reptiles. Below them is a race called the Reptoids, who do not have wings and have brown and green skin. The Reptoids are soldiers and scientists and are responsible for secret government programs and bases, such as the Montauk Project, which was an alleged group of tests done by the United States Army where they tried to develop fringe technologies like time travel. Number 8. How to spot one. If you watch television in slow motion, you can get glimpses of the reptilian's true identity. Sometimes the image can be distorted and skin looks green or scaly. Teeth become distorted, and their eyes look like those of reptiles. There are plenty of videos on YouTube of people who claim they have footage of reptilians shape-shifting. Number 7. Suspected reptilian. There are a number of famous people who are suspected of being reptilian. This includes such notable families as the Rockefellers in the United States, the Rothschild family from Germany, and the British House of Windsor. It's also believed that many of the presidents of the United States are reptilian, including Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, who is apparently higher than Bill in the reptilian hierarchy, Barack Obama, and both Presidents Bush. In fact, the Bushes are an integral part of the conspiracy because of how many famous people are related to them. According to Ancestry.com, George W. Bush and Obama are 11th cousins, and Dick Cheney is his 9th cousin once removed. The blood relatives directly related to the Bushes include Abraham Lincoln, Marilyn Monroe, Pocahontas, Hugh Hefner, John Kerry, Vlad the Impaler, and Princess Diana. That means that possibly all of those people are reptilian as well. Not only have the reptilians infiltrated banking, government, and the world's royalty, but they are also some well-known and beloved entertainers like Bob Hope, Brad Pitt, and Angelina Jolie. Number 6. blood. Blood is very important to the reptilians. For one thing, they apparently consume it. They also eat parts of human brains and apparently prefer children because they aren't as full of poison as adults. Number 2. The Reptilians and the Illuminati. One of the most well-known secret societies is the Illuminati, and according to some theorists, they are controlled by the Dracos. This idea was put forward by a man named Stuart Serdlow, who claims he was a survivor of the Montauk Project. In his book, Blue Blood, True Blood, Conflict and Creation, he claims that there are 13 royal families of the Illuminati. The leader of the Illuminati is called the Pindar, which is shortened from Pinnacle of the Draco, and is a purebred reptile. According to Swerdlow, the Pindar is the head of the Rothschild family, who has been the Pindar for centuries. The 12 other families, all of them incredibly powerful, influential and rich, have different areas of expertise, and they control global finances, military technology and development, mind control, religion, and all the media. All 13 of the ruling families are full-blooded reptilians, but the class of individuals who support the 13 families, called the Committee of 300, are not. In fact, some of them do not even have any reptilian DNA, though most do. The Committee of 300 supports the 13 families by controlling the organizations like the NSA, CIA, Interpol, and the Mafia, just to name a few.
Now, the reptilians as I mentioned, were not from this galaxy. They appeared in a star system known as Draconis, or Draco. It's commonly referred to as Draco. Now, as far as the reptilians are concerned, once the Nuria sank, they went underground, and I told you about the hybridization program. That began in Sumer. That was one of the first places that the human-reptilian DNA mix for the shape-shifting reptilians began. In Sumer and Babylon, this is where the hybridization of the reptilians and the humans went into full force. It was here that they created a unique hybridization blend of 50% genetics reptilian, 50% genetics human. These then became what was known as the blue bloods. Who became the royalty of the earth. The royalty of the earth call themselves the Illuminati. I will tell you that the number 13 is very significant to the Illuminati, because in the last 500 years or so, also even the last 1,000 years, there are 13 families that control this planet. 13 is at the top of the pyramid of families. Beneath them is called the Committee of 300. Those are 300 families who are descended from those original 13 who form the next level of their control pyramid. But the 13 are as follows, 13 families. These families control every minute detail of your life. Can you see it? Can you see that now? Some of them you can remember or recognize, some you may not be so familiar with. Where I have slashes, the Sinclairs are also spelled St. Clair. The Rothschilds were originally known as the Bowers. The Warburgs were originally known as Del Banco, hence the name bank or banking. The Windsors, the proper British family, actually are German, and changed their name in World War I so that people wouldn't think that they were German. but their real name is Saxe-Coburg Gotha. And same thing with Cavendish, whose sublevels are called the Kennedys. Some of these people are in public power right now, and some are not. The Plantagenet family has its center in France, but also sent emissaries or colonies to Scotland and Ireland. Hanover, of course, is a big German city with that name. Everyone knows about the Rothschilds. This is a German derivation of Rothschild, which means the red shield, hence the Red Cross, which you see almost every day, which is also on the flag of Switzerland, which is also not a real country. The Krupps, oh yes, the Krupps, claim to fame, they built the ovens in the concentration camp, and all of the machinations for the Nazi Empire. The de Medicis, you know, Italian family, very well known in banking. Romanovs, Russian royalty. My great uncle had the great distinction of having them assassinated in 1917. The Rockefellers, you know, were actually German. Kennedys, of course, you know, Cavendish, same thing. And the Habsburgs, who are the royalty of Austria. These families control everything in your life. Every single thing in your life. Oh, and by the way, all of these are shape-shifting reptilians. Every single one of them. They can shape-shift into reptilian form. They have a 50-50 split of human reptilian DNA. Most of you have more of a 90-10 split. You all have reptilian DNA. But once you approach this, you are a blue blood. You are royalty, the global elite, the rulers of the New World Order. And you shapeshift. And you need to do ceremony, including blood ritual and hormone intake of human beings in order to maintain a human form. Beneath this group, this 13 families, is the Committee of 300. The Committee of 300 is the next layer in this pyramid of control. And guess where you all are? At the bottom layer. And isn't it interesting that on the US dollar is a pyramid with an eye watching everything that's underneath the pyramid? Now how do they explain that Egyptian Sumerian symbol on a US dollar? Do they explain it when you're in school? No. Do they say why there is an eye watching everything? When these shape-shifting people do their ceremony, it always involves the use of human blood and hormones, because when you are trying to maintain a particular form, you need to intake the genetics of that form to maintain the integrity of it. Otherwise, you regress to your original form, which in their case would be reptilian. Basically, the control group, the Illuminati, is interested in mind controlling the entire population. Because let's face it, there's only a few thousand of them, and there's 6 billion of all of you. There's just not enough armies in the world that can control that size of a population. So the best way to do it is through mind control. And that her only purpose in life was to create an heir for the throne, because she had more human genetics that could be blended then with the reptilian genetics of the Windsor family to get a 50-50 split, because their ratio was deteriorating. She, before she married Prince Charles, was taken to a ceremony where she witnessed them shape-shifting. And when she came back to her apartment, she was throwing up from being sick of seeing the sights of them actually slaughtering babies and drinking their blood. These people actually have women kept in cages sole purpose in life is to give birth and have the baby sacrificed. To reptilians, babies are a delicacy. They have the strongest genetics and the strongest hormones. And especially small children who are brought to the point of severe fear and are murdered at that point, that is the highest energetic output that they can possibly capture. And that's what they do. And drink the blood. This is part of their ceremony. This is the sacrifice. Now, Diana was pregnant, and they used the fetus in a ceremony after they killed her.
It was in 2000 that I first discovered David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret. In it, he writes about a global conspiracy, a hidden hand manipulating humanity's destiny through the shadows, using those who seem to be in power. And the goal of these shadow people? Nothing less than an Orwellian global superstate with total control at the hands of an ancient reptilian shape-shifting race. He began to write, and over a series of increasingly successful books, he began to outline his philosophy. Humankind was not in charge of its destiny. It was the unwitting prisoner of a race of shape-shifting lizards who occupied the roles in the highest echelons of society. From presidents to royal families, all trusted public figures were secretly part of a reptilian, Satanist pedophile group who had been on this planet for centuries.
In simple terms, there is a predator race which take a reptilian form. They're feeding off humanity. They've turned humanity into a slave race. They demand human sacrifice. That's where Satanism comes in. They feed off human energy, particularly feed off the energy of children. It's quite horrific. But if we don't know about it, what can we do to stop it and to change it? I spoke to Arizona Wilder in Los Angeles, and this is what she had to say.
Can we start at the beginning, and can you tell us the story of what's happened in your life from the very start?
Okay, what I can tell you is that before I started looking into my life, back in 1989, I was starting to have flashes of things, and my life was not what it seemed to be, which is why I started looking into it. What it's all about is that the blood and the menstrual blood contains something that is important for the propagation of this race that is controlling things on this planet. They're called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England. And they need the blood because they are, in fact, not human. They take human shape. They are reptilians. And they need the blood. The blood helps them maintain their reptilian shape, and it helps them maintain their sanity, and it helps them to live in this world. But what they need is, for it to be secreted in the blood, is they need terrorization of their victims before they are killed for their blood. They have to terrorize them to get this to come out in the blood and be secreted in the blood. They are killed at that moment as they are staring into their eyes, and not only do they can't hold their shape when this happens. The
human shape.
The human shape they cannot hold. They go back into reptilian shape as this is happening, because it's like an animalistic type of excitement. Oftentimes they will just rip into the victim and eviscerate them and start eating the flesh of this person too. And the fat from the intestinal area is highly valued, as they use it on their skin. And they will drink, and they drink the blood, and the blood is highly sought after, and it goes according also to rank within these creatures. There are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to, and people see them shapeshift more and more, and they need the blood to try and maintain it, to try and maintain their human form. They instilled themselves in different places underground in the earth, and also this one part of them, the ruling part, took over and became involved in the politics and in the religion, and started controlling through these means. They materialize from out of another dimension and are present at rituals, and they are so powerful, and their presence is there's such an evilness about them, and they are what Christianity would have called the demons.
So take us through one of these rituals that you conducted at the highest level of this global brotherhood. What would happen?
They have these children that they're kidnapping and bringing in from other countries, and no one misses them because these are third world countries. And children they have the most energy, the purest energy, they're the highest form of sacrifice. They are used as actual blood sacrifices during these rituals because of, again, reptilians needing their blood. The blood will be gathered in a goblet, and it will be dispersed among the reptilians.
Are these rituals rare? I mean, how many are there that, say, go on a year? I mean, we talking hundreds or thousands?
There are things happening every month of the year.
What happens on the night of Halloween?
that night is about the worship and homage to Satan, the great deceiver Satan, on that night, on Halloween, at this church.
You've conducted them in Europe and the United States. Can we start with the United States?
Yes, I have seen at rituals, I have seen George Bush, I have seen Madeleine Albright, I have seen Henry Kissinger, I have seen Ronald Reagan, and I have also, by the way, seen his wife, Nancy Reagan. I have seen Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton. At the time, at these rituals, she is involved. The other people that I have named and are, as I have seen shapeshift into reptilians. J. Rockefeller, and he shapeshifts. These people seem to all be connected to the Illuminati. Gerald Ford, I have seen shapeshift. Dr. Joseph Mengele, who took me around to these rituals a lot of the time, was also a shapeshifter. There are people in the European countries that I've seen shapeshift and be involved. The Queen there, I've seen Princess Margaret there, I've seen Charles there. And they shapeshift. I have seen Tony Blair there, and he shapeshifts. They all have their quirks as to how they act, even in their reptilian form.
What have you seen the royal family do, the Queen Mother, and the other people you've seen in the rituals? What have you seen them do?
I've seen all of them drink human blood and consume human flesh, and they have their own goblets in which they have blood, and these goblets are encrusted with jewels. And they also have their own daggers, and that the dagger goes into the goblet. Wear these robes, but they don't wear anything underneath the robes, because what is going to happen, what the rituals are all about, they're going to shapeshift, and they can't have anything on under the robes. And there are orgy kind of things that go on at the rituals also. And
involving the royal family of Britain?
Yes, involving the royal family of Britain, and the sacrifice and the eating of, consuming the sacrifice, and they are involved in that.
You've seen them do that?
Yes, I have seen them do that.
Take the Queen Mother as an example. What happens when they shapeshift? I mean, what do you see?
You start to see changes happen, and they're happening so fast that it's almost, it's the closest thing that I've seen to it is what they're now doing with computer technology. It's just a literal transformation that happens very quickly, and they get taller and they get bigger, and they don't look at all as reptilians like they do as humans, and thus the wearing of the robes, because if they were in clothes, the clothes would be torn apart.
So let's take the Queen Mother on this subject as an example. We recognize her as a frail old lady. What does she look like when she shapeshifts at these rituals?
She has, she looks like, the nose portion gets very much longer, and it grows into kind of a snout kind of thing. She has little fangs, and incisors as teeth, and there's a tongue. They all seem to have this kind of tongue when they're at this level, The tongue has a lot of long, hairy or pointed projections coming out of it. It's very long. And they have these, they don't have hands or feet, they have these claws. And they have scales, and also scales that seem to kind of disappear into one another, but it's more pronounced on the back. There seem to be lumps or protrusions coming from the head. There seem to be some kind of growth appendages at where, on the back, and they seem folded, and not all of them have that. And there is a tail, and they a lot of times will keep the tail curled, and and I've seen her when she's very displeased with something, as I've seen other members like this. This tail is whipped around, very agitated, and they do, and she hisses.
What color are they?
Which one in particular?
Take the Queen Mother as an example.
She's kind of a beige color on the underside, and by the time you're going up around to the back and the tail and the top of the head and on top of the nose, snout, whatever, it's coming to a very they're dark speckles or large speckles of dark browns, and the eyes usually they're large. They look like they're very round, and they look like they're coming out of their sockets, and very protruding, and usually the color ranges from a beige to a gold to a dark greenish gold, and then there's this dark slit up and down, a vertical slit, and and the eyes will look hooded, and when they look hooded, it's a very frightening thing, because it seems that when the eyes are hooded, they're about to do something.
What do you mean by hooded?
The lids come down, and it's almost, I guess it would be the same thing in a human as an expression of someone's got an idea.
And how tall are they when they shapeshift?
They're just about 7 feet tall. Some are a little shorter, or to a foot shorter. Some are a little bit taller than 7 feet.
What is it about the rituals that allow the shapeshifting to happen?
When the victims are starting to be sacrificed, it's the scent of the blood, and they start shape-shifting at that point in time, and they can hardly wait to get to the blood. It's like they're addicted to the blood, and then the consumption of human flesh that follows.
What have you seen the Queen or any of the royal family do in relation to that? Have you seen them sacrifice and consume human flesh?
There are certain times when they will actually do a sacrifice, or there will have been someone doing a sacrifice, and it's not happening fast enough for them. So they will step in and finish it themselves, because the ritual has to be gone through. It's sacrificially, ritualistically, it has to have been gone through, and they will step right in and just start tearing the throat out, and they're getting all this blood from the jugular vein at the same time, and that has happened when there are many there that are going to be sacrificed, and they just can't wait, and tearing into the contents of the abdomen and stomach of a victim afterwards.
Who have you seen do that?
I've seen the Queen Mother do that, and Prince Philip and Charles. I've seen Guy de Rothschild do this. It seems that I've seen it more among royalty or so-called royalty do this than people that are not titled. That they don't seem to. They seem like it feels like they don't dare, but they shapeshift nonetheless. But it's like the royals that step in and just start tearing away as they can hardly wait. What it is that they have a hard time holding their human form. And as long as they're around blood and the scent of blood, they can't hold human form.
Forces, and protecting the population and minimizing civilian casualties have long been a cornerstone of the counterinsurgency doctrine. Civilian casualties have long been a cornerstone of the counterinsurgency doctrine.
Brittany is suffering from a major psychological disorder, and that it might actually be bipolar. Could be that. The doc then predicts how much longer they'll live. Sick, I know, but I also know you want to hear what she has to say. The doc says if these people don't get help or straighten up fast, I haven't pre-read any of this. Brittany won't make it to the age 30, Lindsay won't see 25, and Michael Jackson has no more than 5 years left. At the other end, Angelina's going to have a long, healthy life, and so will George Bush and Nicole Richie.
If you're not already bipolar.
I hear yelling in the booth. Are they yelling at me for the way I read that?
You did great.
Okay.
But if you're not...
Wait, excuse me.
I could hear Lisa yelling
Give her a break. She didn't read it earlier. She doesn't know the story. It's okay. Just stop it. She's okay.
I could hear you.
Yeah. Some expert who doesn't know any of them making comments on how long they'll live than we did on Iraq today, okay?
Are you trying to make me...
Talking with teenagers and students about Anna and the other kids I met in Latin America, and so far it's been really inspiring.
And not unpleasant. I mean,
well, we'll change all that.
No, we're not going to change that.
Don't change it, please.
We will not change it. We will not.
She obviously hasn't seen the show. People have been nice, and they're not attacking your dad or his policies to you.
Well, I met with my job. I worked for UNICEF, which is an amazing organization that works in over 150 countries. And my job was to meet with teenagers who were living in exclusion, who were living in extreme poverty or living with HIV, and write their stories, listen to their stories and write them for UNICEF. And so, I mean, I obviously learned so much from these kids. I learned from Anna in particular, who has lived an extremely difficult life. I learned to live each day to its fullest.
Doing any kind of missionary work, I think, really changes a person. And you and your sister had a little bit, I mean, you guys weren't Paris Hilton, but you had a little bit of a reputation as party girls. Do you think this changed you?
During Barack Obama's speech at 2012 APAC Policy Conference at the Washington Convention Center, the cameras spotted a very odd individual, who may be either with the US Secret Service, or with the Israels, and could be a strong evidence of a shapeshifter alien humanoid working for the powers that be, caught in a high-definition video during an event of the Zionist cabal.
4 years ago, I stood before you and said that Israel's security is sacrosanct. It is non-negotiable. That belief has guided my actions as president.
Even though at first sight he looks just like the average Secret Service spook, a series of odd features on his head, face, plus a very strange behavior and creepy movements, suggest something else. But due to the low lighting in half the amphitheater, he would pass unnoticed or regarded as a normal human being by the crowd, and everybody who watched this video, if it was not by the camera of the Jewish News One, which caught him from another angle apparently shape-shifting into some sort of reptilian non-human form. Disregard all the distortions and image artifacts caused by post-edition zooming, and pay close attention to how his head features suddenly change. His ears, his nose, his chin, cheekbone, jaw and mouth are no longer looking human at all. Matter of fact, now he has a blatant non-human face.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern.
Well, I don't believe they're coming from foreign adversaries. If they were, why, that would suggest that they have a technology which is in a whole different sphere than anything we understand. And frankly, China and Russia just aren't there.
And tonight I want to discuss mostly the latest book that I have written called
Blue Blood, True Blood, Conflict and Creation, which is, how many of you have read that book? Just a couple of you. And in that book, I write about what I know as the true history of the Earth, based on the information I received during those 25 years working for the people who control this planet. There's a lot of history, if not almost 100% of history, and what you've learned in school that is completely false. Ideas, scenarios, events that have either been made up completely or that have been changed or altered in some way to fit the agenda of those who control the planet. The history of the Earth, as you know, is millions of years old. In actuality, the story of human beings on the Earth is very short in comparison. It's less than 1 million years old. And the original colonists on this planet, again, I'm condensing a lot because you can read about it in that book, were reptilian beings. Reptilians represent about 25% of the population of this galaxy. Human life form represents about 70% of the life forms in this particular galaxy, and then 5% are other types of beings of various proportions. Now understand, even though that's only 5% as far as other type of creatures are concerned, if you think that in this galaxy alone there are an estimated 100 billion stars, and then extrapolate that to where in the physical universe there are approximately 100 billion galaxies, and if you do the math, it's astronomical, the number of star systems that exist. And if only 0.1% of all of those stars had intelligent life, that would still be millions of civilizations, and then times that by the infinite realities that exist. In other words, alternate universes. There's different kinds of information. Misinformation is simply misinterpreted knowledge or information that has not been understood correctly, like an honest mistake. Disinformation is a lie sandwich. That's when you have a lie in the middle with two truths on the end, or two lies on the end and a truth in the middle, but you get hooked in by the truth part, and so you think that the whole rest of it is also true. And that's what the government and all the governments of the earth do when they give out information to the public. It's always disinformation. And the human civilizations that existed in this galaxy originated in what is called the Lyrian star system. And I'll put that word up on the board for you because you may hear it a lot in the future. The star system was called Lyrae. And for all intents and purposes, that was the home star system of all human life in this galaxy. And there is another star system that can be seen, I believe, from the southern hemisphere that is called Draco. And it was from here that the reptilian civilizations or beings existed, and they actually attacked the Lyrian civilization and broke it up into many pieces. And the refugees of the Lyrian star system fanned out throughout this sector of the galaxy and occupied a lot of the star systems that are within this particular sector. When your president, which I'm sure you all voted for him, when he took office after that fake election, what did he give everybody as a little symbol when he took office? A little three-horned god. And the caption says, I have the original over there, it says, that's a salute. He gave the crowd a salute. That's a three-horned god.
Is reptilian antlers a salute?
He is a reptilian. He's a shapeshifter. I didn't get to that part yet. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but Clinton did this also in his inauguration. It's called the Devil's Salute. They go like this. This is the horns of the devil. This is the face of the devil. And they go like that. And this is Clinton here doing that. And if you go through every inauguration, there's a picture of every one of the presidents doing this.